Hi, I'm Jane Dunawald.
And I'm Zenna Duke.
And this is the third in our four-part series on the Cornerstones of Creativity. The first two videos are videos you should go back and watch in case you haven't already seen them, because we talked about the first two cornerstones. And the first cornerstone is curiosity. When you're thinking about becoming more intentional in plumbing the depths of your creativity, curiosity is really important.
Right.
And you can cultivate it. You can decide that you're going to look around and stop and take a little time and notice things around you and be curious about them in a way that you may not necessarily always be. So cultivating your curiosity was number one. And then number two was working on clarity.
Right. Once you decide to jump in and explore something that you're curious about, you then have the experience of realizing that you really like it and you'd like to pursue it, or you're not that into it and you can set it aside and never do it again.
Which is a great thing, because that's how we can self-select and find more time for ourselves too.
Yeah.
So clarity is really good.
Right.
And it lends itself to turning your life into what you want your life to be like.
Absolutely.
It's pretty simple. So once you're practicing curiosity and you're achieving clarity, the third cornerstone is community.
Yes.
Because it's hard to keep the momentum going all by yourself sometimes. But the problem is where to look for the community.
Right.
And so I have an exercise that can lead into that.
Okay.
We're going to write a personal ad for what we want out of community.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. You write yours, I'll write mine.
Okay. So that was harder than I thought it was going to be.
It was hard.
I
was surprised.
Yeah, me too. We had not done this before. So this was an exploration for us too.
Well, and may I say, that's part of the whole point of this series, is that sometimes you jump into something and it is going to make you more aware, and that can't help but feed into being more creative, and you just go with it. I mean, part of this is just learning to go with things.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't even work if it was canned.
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's see what we've got.
Okay.
I'm a girl with creative potential looking for others who want to work on being more creative too. Must be open-minded, willing to share openly, and have a good sense of humor. I could take out openly. Willing to share and have a good sense of humor. Non-judgment and kindness are important, so let's make it fun to be creative together and explore.
I love that.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I felt weird referring to myself as a girl, frankly, but I wanted it to sound a little playful.
Yeah, that's great.
So, okay, what's yours?
Okay. 31-year-old introverted extrovert seeks supportive, fun-loving, compassionate, empathetic, and socially conscious people to join her in exploring what it means to have meaningful conversation and to practice developing trust and connection.
Wow, that's fantastic.
But then as I was writing it, I realized I don't think I would ever go. I wouldn't. I just don't think you can start with that with people. Like,
oh, no.
When you're beginning to build relationships, but writing it down made me more clear about what I want out of my friends and new friends and potentially just new community. So that was really great.
That's right, because then in a way it's kind of your mission statement.
Exactly.
Because you know what you're looking for.
Yeah. And then I started realizing how I have developed this with friends that I currently have in my life. And it was always over something that I wanted to explore, that I was curious about. And what came to mind was board games.
Oh.
There are these specific games that I've started playing with my husband and some of our friends. And by spending that time together in community with some people that we know, we've then been able to develop deeper connections.
And that turns into the community.
And that, right.
Yeah.
And that's...
But you know, another thing, okay, so let's talk about how you could, this was just for fun, supposedly, but then it turns into something that's actually serious and helpful. So then how would you use it? Because obviously you're not going to, go to Craigslist and put this on there.
Right.
You could. Well, you could. That'd be an interesting, if you wanted to write a book,
That's true.
That'd be an interesting thing to do. If you do that, let us know, because we want to hear all about it, right?
Yeah.
So, but it is true that without, now, but let's talk at the local level.
Right.
Let's say that you're already in another organization and you enjoy being part of it, but it's not that personal. Or you haven't developed the personal relationships within it. And I guess we're talking about creativity in a broad sense here. It's not just about making things.
Right.
It's about how you interact in all kinds of ways in your life. So at a local level, or let's just say that you've met a couple people somewhere that you have hit it off with. Well, you could send them an email and say, I'd like to get together. I'm kind of thinking that I'd like to put a group together that might meet every few weeks and just talk about projects. And if everybody was already an artist or had aspirations to be creative in a visual way or writing or whatever, that'd already be one bond that you'd have. But I think it would be really worth it to sit down at that very first get-together and have everybody do this.
Yeah.
And that'd be a non-threatening thing.
Yeah.
But then if you sat at a table over coffee and talked about this with 2 or 3 other people, that'd go a long way, which I'm such a fan of cutting to the chase. This is the vulnerability part. So there'd be that to do. But here's the problem. What if you're really an introvert? You mentioned it. What do you do?
I've thought a lot about that because I am an introvert, and I think you just have to screw up the courage to reach out to one person. And if it's easier to email and not do face-to-face, or, or even maybe look for a group online, but it's I don't think it's something that's going to fall in your lap. You have to seek it out.
Well, I think you have to write it down because, frankly, look at how much I scratched out.
Yeah.
So that would be true. And I'm thinking about that because of what you said about, if it's easier to write it in an email, because then you can compose it so you're sure before you send it, you're saying what you intend to say.
Yeah.
But I think that's another aspect of this. What if you're somewhere isolated and you don't have anybody?
Yeah.
There's nobody within 100 miles that you could get together with once a month.
Yeah.
Well, that's the beauty of online stuff. And sometimes it's just having met somebody, like since I teach so many workshops, it's having met somebody in a workshop somewhere that you remember fondly. Well, you could write to them and say, whatever happened to the good old-fashioned idea of a pen pal?
Yeah.
And I know groups of people who came out of the first creative strength training classes that we did who still have a phone call every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Or a Zoom call.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it'd be the elephant in the room if we didn't talk about how surprisingly successful the creative strength training online program is, because I never in a million years expected so many people to be vulnerable and willing to write things.
It's amazing. But that goes back to setting up a sort of guideline before, as people are joining the group, about what the expectations are. And going back a minute, you can do that in person when you're starting to set something up. And that's so helpful, but also that's what we've done online in our groups. And I think those guidelines are just great for any group.
Yeah, it's really important because that really came out of my watching critique groups try to put themselves together when they didn't have enough of a foundation and they weren't clear, the clarity, they weren't clear about what the guidelines were, so then people could stomp on other people and there'd be the blurt. Who always knows everything about everybody because the whole group's made up of firstborns. Who knows why. So in order to wind this down, first of all, we want people to, here's what your assignment, if there is such a thing, is to write your personal ad for what you would want from a community.
Right, write one for yourself, by yourself, and then maybe if you do have a group of friends that you would...
Try it with them.
Yeah.
Or try it with somebody online. But I have taken the liberty of writing out the guidelines that I think are really good when a group is trying to put itself together.
They're great.
And they're the ones that we use when we teach things. So number 1 is that members need to come to the table realizing their difference, and they have a wide range of backgrounds and experiences. And it's really important to be respectful and non-judgmental in interactions, which means avoiding things as much as possible like you should.
Oh, yeah.
Or sharing it from your first person point of view instead of telling somebody what to do. Then the second one that's so critical is that I think that we have to establish a level of safety within the group. And the way we do that, the way we do that is by agreeing up front, whether it's a local group or whether it's a closed online group of some kind. Even if it's no different from if I'm writing something personal to you, I want to know my information's safe with you. So everybody in the group agrees that whatever the discussion is, it stays within the community, and I don't run into one of your friends and start telling her all about what you told me in the privacy of this group.
Right.
And I think when we do that, then we allow ourselves to be more vulnerable. And vulnerability, ironically enough, is at the heart of being in a really close community with other people in a safe, trusting, beautiful way.
Yeah.
So we want you to write your personal ad, and we want you to think about who you would invite into your community if you had the opportunity to build it yourself, what your ideal community would look like, because we're curious and we want to get clear about that. That sounds a little corny, but it's worth considering. And we'll move on to the fourth cornerstone in our next video, and we hope you'll join us for that.